Slovenes, Croats, Bosnians, Serbs, Albanians, Montenegrins, and Macedonians are all races with their own language, history, and religion. Now imagine them all held together under the banner of socialism and ironclad law. That was the nation now known as Yugoslavia. The amount of tension between races must have been unbearable, with so many different religions and languages. Our story, however, starts in the 1960s when Yugoslavia was under the dictatorship of Josip Broz Tito, a figure both respected and feared at the same time. Ascending to control in 1963, Tito declared himself president for life. He navigated the many different ethnic tensions, muffling the voices of nationalism with a blend of charisma and authoritarian might. Tito's Yugoslavia was a land of so-called peace and unity, yet beneath his facade simmered a potent brew of unrest, waiting for the right catalyst. As the decades passed, the brew began to boil. Following Tito's death in 1980, Yugoslavia began to descend into chaos. Nationalism that was long suppressed re-emerged and started to break down the ties that bound the nation together. Each ethnic group, rekindling its historical grievances and aspirations, started to eye a future apart from their forced unity. The early 1990s marked a turning point. Slovenia and Croatia, spurred by rising nationalist views, declared independence in 1991, lighting the fuse of the Yugoslav wars. The stage was set for Bosnia and Herzegovina, where the battle lines were drawn not just on maps but within towns, villages and families. Under the leadership of Elijah Izborković, Bosnia declared its independence in April 1992. Elijah, a Muslim leader and a commander-in-chief who envisioned a multi-ethnic Bosnia, found himself cornered by nationalistic Serbs and Croats. Within his own borders, each group wanting to carve out their own territories. This declaration of independence ignited a brutal conflict, with former neighbours turning into foes overnight. The war was fought on three different fronts for Bosnian Muslims. They fought for their independence from Yugoslavia, they fought the Bosnian Serbs, and at the start they fought the Croats. The war between the Croats, however, ended in 1994, and it was mainly based around controlling parts of central Bosnia. Eventually, the Washington Agreement was signed and a ceasefire was in place between the Croats and the Bosnians. The once bustling streets of Sarajevo, Bosnia's heart, transformed into the stage of a horrific siege, organized and orchestrated by Bosnian Serb forces. It became the longest siege of a capital city in modern history, a grim part of this war where civilians were thrown into a daily struggle for survival. Snipers' bullets and artillery shells rained down as the world watched, the city's rich history crumbling down under the barrage. The international community's response was a slow, frustrating show of diplomacy and half measures being put in place. But the response of the Muslims was not slow, and about 2,000 to 3,000 mujahideen volunteered to fight in this war and vowed to protect the Muslims at any cost. They came from Muslim nations in the Gulf and in North Africa and some parts of Central Asia like Afghanistan and Pakistan. Here's some footage of the Mujahideen in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
الذي يستطيع أن يصطحب معه زمزمية ماء يكون طيب. أي واحد يشوف واحد غير
Ebu Sabit al-Muhađir, emir linije, upućuje također braći vojničke savjete i objašnjava im plan akcije.
The UN aid convoys snaked through besieged areas and NATO declared a no-fly zone, yet the machinery of death on the ground churned with no care, targeting innocent civilians relentlessly, day after day, week after week, month after month. The massacre at Srebrenica in July 1995 marked a harrowing turning point in the Bosnian War, where over 8,000 Bosnian Muslims were systematically exterminated. This includes women, children, and innocent elderly men. These were not fighters. This atrocity not only exposed the brutal reality of ethnic cleansing, but also jolted the international community out of its complacency. Faced with heightened global scrutiny and intense international pressure, the warring factions were compelled to engage in peace talks. By December 1995, these diplomatic endeavors culminated in the Dayton Agreement, effectively drawing the war to a close. The Dayton Agreement was signed in 1995 to end the war in Bosnia. It was negotiated in Dayton, Ohio, and officially signed in Paris. The agreement split Bosnia and Herzegovina into two parts. One part is mostly for Croats and Bosniaks, and the other part was mostly for Serbs. A separate government that shared power between the three main ethnic groups. The agreement also included rules about military control, protecting people's rights, and helping refugees return home. While it stopped the fighting and kept peace for a while, it is also criticized for keeping the ethnic divisions alive and making the government system complex and very slow. The agreement still affects Bosnia's politics and society today. Bosnia, and particularly Sarajevo, had undergone a dramatic transformation. Today, Sarajevo stands as a vibrant testament to resilience. I hope now you have more knowledge on the tragic events that took place in Bosnia in the 1990s. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to keep learning.